It's wrapped around that thing. Okay. We are going to go live in 5, 4, 3.
A gummy bear.
It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this for January 30th, 2025. For the next hour or so, let me help you sort through the world of gaming on Game Mess Mornings Live with me, Jeff Grubb. Today, BioWare does get hit with layoffs as the company slims down to focus solely on Mass Effect, and Mario loses its legal battle with Super Mario. I guess that works. But first, please join me in welcoming today's co-host of Game Mess Mornings. It's Jan Ochoa, everybody. Jan, how's it going?
It's going fantastic, Jeff Grubb. Man, I don't know how I'm going to live up to last Thursday. Matt Piscatella tore the house down.
He's
on this program.
He's a good boy. We're going to have him on here more frequently to get him on here when we can. But he really does crush it. Absolutely.
I felt so much smarter after listening to that episode.
Yep, it was like, oh yeah. So all those questions that we're always asking, like, is it like this? Is it like that? He just knows. He just knows the answers. It's very, very helpful. So, yeah, it rules. He is a great guest. And we'll have him back. But I'm glad to have my Jan Ochoa back. Jan, I did. I kind of shifted gears in my life where I wrote a note to one of my children's teachers, and I signed it as Mr. Grubb. And that's not. I've not done that before in my life. I've not pulled the Mr. Grubb card. I was trying to be like, not authoritative, but trying to like put up like, hey, I'm serious about this. And so just putting, Jeff on there. Jeff is a joke of a name.
Right.
It's like, it's a punchline. Like, what are you, a fucking Jeff? Like, that's what that is. So I was like, Mr. Grubb. And yeah, Mr. G's like, if the kids start having like their friends over more frequently, I'll have them call me Mr. G. But yeah, Mr. Grubb when I'm trying to be serious. So that's the new phase of my life.
Oh, I love this. Mr. Grubb, do you live in a neighborhood where when weather permits, kids can just ride their bikes down the street and everything?
Yeah, for the most part. It's not, it's a one street kind of neighborhood sort of deal. There is some traffic, but we have sidewalks and stuff. So yes, they can ride their bike down and be just fine. I see kids taking the electric scooters down the street all the time. I
cannot wait. Perhaps you're doing some yard work and some friends of the gimmicks are strolling down the street. It's a nice spring afternoon and they all go, "Hey, Mr. Grubb." And then you just politely look and nod.
Yeah, I'm like, I look up from my garden. Yeah, absolutely.
I can't wait to have that for you.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited. Absolutely. Yeah. Also, I've definitely been like, kind of in a bad mood all the time right now. Like I am.
I get it.
I am testy is what I'm realizing. And it's like affecting everything. I'm being short with everybody. I am in the mood to fight everybody. And boy, it's like, man, I wish I could just control myself a little bit better. So yeah, went outside, took a long walk this morning, did some meditating, and that's helping. But boy, it was like very frustrating to be like, oh, why can I not control? And everyone's feeling this way. Like if everyone's like, if you're online or you talk with your friends or your family and you're like, you know what, this person might be an a-hole, give them just a little bit of slack, a little bit of grace, because I think everyone right now is just feeling off and not happy.
Oh yeah. I feel a little short with everybody when I hang out with y'all.
Oh, of course.
So
yeah.
That's just the thing.
Yeah, when we're hanging out with usually we're like putting together a thing that could be on fire in any second, and it's like, oh man, I'm just riding that stress, that stress stallion until we get all this done. But yeah, I put that on top of just the way I'm feeling about everything, and it's a bad feeling. So trying to be mindful, trying to be better, but it's a process, is what it is. So
please, someone make a Photoshop. A spoof of Beyonce's last cover, the cover of her last album, with all of the GB crew riding that white horse, but stress is just written on that horse.
Yeah, a horse made out of the letters STRESS. Yeah, that's pretty good. All right, let's explain what we do here. Most weekdays, I, Jeff Grubb, will help piece your gaming life back together. That includes breaking news and maybe even some of our own original reporting. For all these topics, I'll get the input of a bona fide expert who will make me look smart. If you were watching live on Twitch, welcome. You can always listen to the show later on podcast feeds by searching for Game Mess Mornings or find the RSS on giantbomb.com. You can also catch the show later with chapters and timestamps on YouTube. Hello, YouTube. All right, we have a lot to get into, so let's start the morning mess with BioWare betting it all on Mass Effect 5 after even more layoffs. This is from Ethan Gotch at Kotaku. What's left of BioWare, the renowned RPG powerhouse behind beloved franchises like Dragon Age, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and the original Baldur's Gate games? It's a hard question to answer in 2025 after multiple rounds of layoffs and restructurings as the studio pivots between the character-driven stories fans love and the live service gaming model investors want. The only thing that seems certain is that the studio's entire fate feels like it's riding on Mass Effect 5, a game that's still a long ways off. BioWare General Manager Gary McKay tried to explain the current state of the studio in a new blog post that was full of vague ambitions but light on actual specifics. We know that the studio has completely moved on from last year's Dragon Age The Veilguard, and it's focused entirely on making the next Mass Effect game. The studio says it's being developed by a core team under the guidance of series veterans Mike Gamble, Preston Wadamanuik, Derek Watts, Parrish Lay, and others. From there, things get a bit more hazy. Here's an excerpt from McKay's brief blog post. In keeping with our fierce commitment to innovating during the development and delivery of Mass Effect, we have challenged ourselves to think deeply about delivering the best experience to our fans. We are taking this opportunity between full development cycles to reimagine how we work at BioWare. Given this stage of development, we don't require support from the full studio. We have incredible talent here at BioWare, and so we have worked diligently over the past few months to match many of our colleagues with other teams at EA that had open roles that were a strong fit. This is a situation where they were like, hey, we're going to move on a lot of people to other places within EA, but there's a lot of people also who are just straight up laid off. These were layoffs first and foremost. And it was because they are, they were a studio that was technically making 2 games, and now they're making 1 game. They're all focused on Mass Effect. They're not like, now to like slowly spool up over time as we get ready for the next Dragon Age. That doesn't really seem in the cards. It is, let's get everybody focused on Mass Effect 5, because then we're going to see what happens with Mass Effect 5, and if that actually pops off or not, and that delivers in the way that we want it to deliver. BioWare, obviously in a like on the razor's edge for quite some time. Jan, how are you feeling about all this?
It can't feel good for anyone internally at BioWare right now, especially when you see the language that, yeah, we're betting it all on Mass Effect 5, and then when you look at any type of calendar or projections or like any Asana board, I'm assuming they may use Asana, that they are so far off that maybe this project doesn't even see its completion and they're betting everything onto this. I'm not going to lie, Grubb, when I first saw the headline, I was confused as to why it was Mass Effect 5.
Yeah.
I 100% forgot about Andromeda.
Yeah, you're not alone. It's definitely how it goes.
The problem is this is also a very different BioWare than when the original Mass Effect trilogy came out. I'm sure some of that talent has still remained at the studio, but it doesn't feel good on either side. As a fan of Mass Effect and internally at BioWare, feeling that, as you said, being on the razor's edge and feeling more and more pressure all around you for this game to succeed, it cannot be a strong, healthy feeling at the studio to have it on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I think it's got to be like, you're coming off of Dragon Age The Veilguard, a game that they essentially rescued at BioWare from the clutches of the live service push. And, during the process, I know that they were feeling very good about it because they did manage to turn it into a game that is pretty respectable compared to what it was going to be. And then, the gap between what it was going to be and what it turned out to be, while large, there's still a large remaining gap between what it turned out to be and what fans really, really want, which is, the sky is sort of the expectations these days for these games. People are just coming off of Baldur's Gate 3, so people expect a lot. So it's hard to deliver these games in line with what people want them to be. and so and that's like the existing audience, right? That's the existing audience of fan, not potential fans, but people who are already looking forward to these games, and you're selling it to not a fraction, but well, I mean, I guess technically it's a fraction, but not to 100% of those fans, and then you're going to struggle to find new fans because it's an older franchise and people are busy playing other games. Mass Effect might have a slightly better chance. I mean, Mass Effect is even maybe a little bit more mainstream than Dragon Age, so maybe it has a little bit more tailwind to ride on here, but it's obviously going to face a lot of the same problems. And I think that starting out this really the sprint of development to get this game finished, it's been in development for a long time, but they definitely have put it to the side while they were finishing up Dragon Age. Starting up the sprint to get it finished with we're rethinking the way BioWare works, it's got to be disheartening at that studio.
Yeah, my hope, Grubb, is that the audience out there that is more interested in space fantasy has been laying dormant because there haven't been too many games that really appeal to them. I mean, we have the Outer Wilds 2 coming out, but that doesn't scratch the same itch as a Mass Effect game would.
Yeah, it kind of like tries to like play in that space a little bit. Outer Worlds 1 did. But you're right. It's not. It's not Mass Effect.
Yeah, it isn't Mass Effect, and I'm kind of hankering for more Mass Effect, Grubb. I'm not 100% sure how strong the brand name of Mass Effect is with like the general gaming populace, but like maybe seeing like a space squad shooter single player epic could do well.
Yeah.
I hope that they lean into the strengths of Mass Effect, partially being the relationships that you build with your crew. I hope that continues to be a focus, because if they try and, I don't know, Grubb, stuff some games as a service stuff, some multiplayer stuff that doesn't quite need to be there, it's just gonna tank.
Yeah.
Just give me nothing but Rexes.
Yeah. Oops, all Rexes for sure.
Yeah.
People are pointing out, and this is right, the Legendary Edition did do very well. That collection of Mass Effect remasters really did pop off. Whether that is a large a cohort of Mass Effect fans showing up for it, that seemed to be mostly the case. But it turns out, the Mass Effect was in a lot of ways the zenith of video game culture, like being able to like kind of wrap itself into pop culture, where it's like, hey, this is our generation's Star Wars, actually, in some ways, where we feel like that can happen entirely within video games, and that didn't really reach its full potential, but it definitely was playing in that space. And so I think that we probably won't be able to recapture that feeling and that magic with a Mass Effect 5 kind of lumbering towards the finish line here, but it still carries some of that cachet. So I think there's a chance this could be a very popular game, but whether it is the blockbuster release, like I don't even know how do you manufacture one of these blockbuster releases these days to make people feel like they have to play it and have to care. I don't know. It really seems like we are a long way away from that world.
Yeah, maybe the solace, Grubb, is that because this game is still so far away, maybe gaming tastes at that point will kind of circle back to really hankering for what Mass Effect 5 may be able to deliver to folks at home. That being said, I have been having to go down to the San Francisco office quite a bit this and last week, and I did see one N7 hoodie, Grubb. So the people are out there.
Yeah, yes, exactly. There is. It feels like it has the popularity of like the most popular fantasy novel series or something like that. Like maybe actually a level above, like the Wheel of Time, or like A Song by Some Fire before the shows came out. So it's like on a tier above that, where it's like, people love this merch, they love these characters. And I think really just the question comes down to like, what kind of game are they going to put out for the fans here? Are they going to be able to deliver the thing that is, the action-based game that Mass Effect 3 was, that maybe puts some of the character relationships and the decisions in the back seat just a tiny bit? Or are they going to be able to find a balanced line? And really, how do they live in a post Baldur's Gate 3 world. And I don't think they make it exactly like Baldur's Gate 3, but you find the things that were in Mass Effect that worked really well, that have like a similar sort of feeling where it's like, hey, I am making choices and and I'm exploring things in my way, to the point where it's like I am choosing a path through all this labyrinthine maze of other choices, and I'm ignoring a lot of stuff because that's not my story. And it's like, I think that is where Mass Effect is at its strongest, and they could easily make that game. As long as they avoid the trap that all these major games have fallen recently, which maybe this is a matter of necessity, but they just sort of rub off all the rough edges and just leave this very polished, clean-looking, sterile thing. And I think it's got to be a little bit messier than that.
Yeah, we talked about this very briefly, I believe last week, how there was kind of a drought when it comes to Star Trek games.
Yeah.
So it feels like an untapped market. I mean, Star Wars Outlaws eventually did well, but those gamers out there that are hankering for space exploration don't often have their needs met. That being said, if you are looking for space exploration, No Man's Sky dropped the millionth update for free out there. So that is an option, but No Man's Sky doesn't scratch that Mass Effect itch.
Yeah.
I never actually checked out Andromeda just because of like the poor reviews, and now I can't believe I'm saying this, but Mass Effect Jandromeda.
Yeah. I mean, it's right there. You kind of, if the name works that easily, we're by the bylaws of Giant Bomb, we have to play it. So,
and I have no idea the state of the game now, how much it may have been improved since its release. It's been quite a long time, Grubb.
Yeah, I mean, they fixed up some of it. Like it's not the trash fire it was at launch. My frustrations were I got in the Mako or whatever, the whatever it was called, the big space truck, and I was supposed to drive up to the top of a space mountain, and I couldn't find the path up, so I was just going in circles around this mountain. As this waypoint was just like I was orbiting this waypoint, and I got so frustrated I never touched the game again. It was like, this is just stupid.
Do you think, Grubb, that there may be elements of previous BioWare games that they could potentially rework to fit into a Mass Effect 5? I know that we joke around a lot about Anthem, but there were parts of Anthem that were interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have one of the classes that maybe is an aerial class. Yeah, for sure. I think, the action of Mass Effect 3 really was very good. And then the flying around in Anthem, some of the action there was also very good. I think, I think it just turns out, if you are in action games these days, that's only going to carry you so far. Because even FromSoft games, a lot of it comes down to the adventure element of exploring the world or learning the lore and figuring out, or the action is so refined that people will remember these boss fights forever. That's never going to be the games that BioWare's making. They're very good action games, but they're not up there in the top tier of action games. So you kind of just can't build a whole game around shooting stuff for 40 hours. If you're one of these games, you're going to have to get in there and find the real heart that people are searching for, and that's going to have to be something different. All right, let's move along here. People are selling non-transferable Switch 2 experience tickets on eBay. This is from George Yang at GameSpot. Nintendo is holding the Nintendo Switch 2 experience beginning in April, where people can get hands-on time with the upcoming system. Fans were required to register for tickets, and participants were randomly selected. Now that the tickets went out earlier this week, some winners have been putting them up for sale on eBay. The issue is that these tickets are non-transferable, meaning that whoever buys it from the reseller won't be able to get into the event. On Nintendo's FAQ page, one of the questions was whether the ticket can be given to someone else, and the answer clearly states no. Event tickets are non-transferable and one-time use only. One supposed ticket for the event in Milan was put up for sale, but the listing is no longer there. There's another listing for a Dallas ticket that is starting at a bid of $40, but it has since also been taken down. Some are going for as high as $300, such as a listing for the event in New York. I guess we're not really sure how they are going to give us the QR codes, for these events. It's possible that it's like a static QR code in an email. And then I bet you probably will be able to get in. But if it's, fully tied to your Nintendo Switch Online account, where like you have to log into your Nintendo Switch Online account on your phone, and it's one of those rotating QR codes, like that is, you're not going to be able to transfer that. That is just not going to work. You're not going to be able to figure that out unless you give someone else your Nintendo Switch Online account, which I guess you could do, but like, is that really worth it to you for $50? Probably not. So this is a weird situation, but and Nintendo is telling people, hey, if you didn't get in, put your name on the wait list, because all these people that aren't going to be able to get in and can't sell their tickets, well, don't worry, we'll open up some spaces later, and maybe you'll still be able to come and check it out. So it's weird.
Yeah, anyone that does this, go get bent. This is already a problem with concert tickets, of people buying tickets outside of their region to try and scalp after the fact. This is supposed to be a free event for people. Don't be a dork.
Yeah, it's just a kind of a boneheaded move. Of course, this is like where things are at with like the Switch 2 overall right now, where the thing's been announced, and now it's all about like pricing and pre-orders and getting a chance to touch the device. The people have been selling the pre-orders they are getting from some like European retailers that have put it up, and they're selling it for $1,000. And I think there's been at least a couple of those $1,000 listings that have sold on eBay.
Wow.
Like if you actually go check the history there, it doesn't just say closed, it says sold. So like a transaction of $1,000 actually happened. It's weird out there. That's what always happens. It's going to continue to be very odd until people know exactly how this is going to go down. When it comes to selling and buying the console, and that has clearly even transferred over to the Switch 2 experience. I would have loved to have gone to one of these, Jan, but also I'm at a point where it's like, God, if this thing comes out in May, we're gonna be there. January is already over. Like that. I mean, for as many decades as it happened in January, it's already over at the same time.
Yeah, for as many unprecedented times as we've already lived through in January alone. And it's only Thursday today, correct?
Yeah.
So
Jesus.
the whole lifetime can happen from now until tomorrow's episode of Game Mess. Nikki and I tried entering for different time slots in the LA event, and both of us got rejected. But it's no skin off my nose. We will eventually see it.
Yeah.
I'm assuming there will hopefully be a press event.
There's almost certainly going to be a press event in SF, and that that you guys you all will go to. So yeah.
And PAX East is in May of this year, and depending on when that window is for the Switch 2 releasing, I'm assuming there will be some Nintendo presence at PAX East. I know that
usually
Nintendo
have a presence at PAX,
Nintendo had that little whole section at PAX West, but maybe that
they're based in Seattle, so maybe that made more sense. But you're right. Yeah. Switch 2 coming out, they do often do things at PAX and PAX East, so yeah, they could easily be there. You're right. Good point. All right, let's just keep it moving here. Hilariously blatant Mario Strikers ripoff is now on Xbox. This is from Blair Marnell at GameSpot. The video game industry has plenty of titles that look like they were gently lifted from some other game that came before them, but few are quite as blatant about it as Mario Strikers Soccer League, a recent arrival on Xbox Marketplace. It could be charitably called an homage to Mario Strikers Battle League, but it's unlikely that Nintendo will let that go without a response. Via Nintendo Light Games with an extra S, so Light Games is the publisher of Mario Strikers Soccer League, which was released January 10th on Xbox Marketplace. The description of the game adds some unexpected humor to the listing because someone seemingly forgot to put the actual name of the game in the opening paragraph and never bothered to fix the mistake. Here's how it reads. Dive into the thrilling world of arcade-style soccer with, parenthetical, your game name here. Experience the excitement of 4x4 matches where every player counts. Every player counts. Finally, a game where every player counts, Jan.
Grubb, with this political climate, I'm glad to finally be included.
I'll tell you where I'm at. I want to play this game so bad. I actually was like, so the cover art is just like knockoff like it's so obviously Mario, but he's just like a little bit skinnier and taller. And I think he might be wearing a beanie instead of a Mario hat. But Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, okay. But he, it's like so clearly just the cover of Mario Strikers. But I can't find gameplay of this thing anywhere. I'm like, as soon as we're done here, I'm gonna go download this on the Xbox and try it out for myself to see what it looks like. 'Cause I don't know how much the game itself is like exactly Mario Strikers.
This game is currently $3.99, folks at home, on the Xbox store. I am all for this, Jeff.
Yes, me too. I love this bullshit. This is okay. Boy, it looks like what if someone with the gameplay itself, and this is from the Xbox store. Thank you, Marino, for putting this in chat. It looks like if someone ripped off, in terms of gameplay, ripped off a backyard soccer from like 2000. Yeah. So, oh boy, that is very, very good.
Okay. It is one thing to have your cover athlete be a tall, stretched out Mario. He looks like if Waluigi got his life together.
That's a terrifying concept.
Listen, folks, we can all do it. It's a New Year's resolution, not a new month. But to call it Mariostro Strikers, what are we doing, guys?
That's probably going to get you in a little bit of trouble, but maybe not, because Nintendo loses legal battle with an unexpected Super Mario. This is from Blair Marnell at GameSpot. When it comes to court battles, very few individuals would want to be on the opposite side of Nintendo. The video game company famously defeated Universal Pictures in a Donkey Kong-related case 4 decades ago, and it's rarely lost a high-profile case. But now there's at least one man who can claim a legal victory over Nintendo, Don Mario. Well, sort of. As reported by Eurogamer, Don Mario is the owner of Super Mario, a local supermarket in San Ramon, Costa Rica. Nintendo seemingly left the Super Mario shop alone for years and only opposed the store's name when Don Mario had to renew the trademark with Costa Rica's Trademark Authority. The National Register apparently, according to the National Register, apparently one of the reasons why Don Mario and his son Charlito emerged victorious is that the supermarkets are among the few Super Mario trademarks that Nintendo never bothered to register. Thank you enormously to my legal advisor and accountant, Jose Edgardo Jimenez Blanco, who took care of this registration and the subsequent fight for the right to a trademark, wrote Charlito Mario on Facebook. Super Mario is, you can have a market named Super Mario in Costa Rica, I guess. Now, Nintendo going after them, I get why, like, people are gonna be like, Nintendo, you don't just leave these people alone. Trademark is the weird one where it's not like copyright. Copyright is very well enshrined and protected, and you don't really have to do anything. As long as if you wrote the thing, it has immediate copyright protection, whether you register it or not. It just like, as long as you can prove you wrote the thing on a certain date and someone writes something that's exactly like that after that, you can sue them and you're probably going to win because copyright protection, very strong. Trademark protection, you have to use it or you will lose it is basically the rule of thumb there, where you have to actually enforce it, or the trademark office is going to be like, oh, you don't seem to care about this. You don't think there's actually going to be market confusion. So clearly we're going to create a wider space for more people to come and take over this. So Nintendo's lawyers are always going to be more aggressive about trademark, and everybody's lawyers are aggressive about trademark. That said, this has been the name of their store for a very long time. It is always weird when they actually come down hard, and it's like, hopefully Nintendo's like, okay, we lost, we'll just move on.
Right. Yeah, I can't imagine, Grubb, that the Super Mario market is causing any type of confusion or drawing any people to think like, oh well, they're gotta sell the Switch 2 here. Or that the Super Mario market is affecting Nintendo as a whole at all.
Yeah, definitely not.
Also, may I suggest, instead of Mr. Grubb, you start going as Don Grubb.
Okay, I like that. Yeah, hello, I'm Don Grubb.
Ooh,
call me Don.
There's a different panache to it.
Yeah, kiss the ring. There you go, everybody.
Ooh.
People just tell that to the patent trolls. Yeah, patents are different, and patent trolls are. Patent trolls are very similar to copyright trolls, where some retired lawyer will acquire a bunch of patents and acquire a bunch of copyrights for like songs, and then they will make money just by threatening to sue people and then forcing them to settle. That happens all the time. Trademark, again, a little bit different. A little bit different. All right. Yeah, go ahead, Jan. Anything else?
I just like there are so many rip-off logos, food truck names
Yes.
everywhere, Grub. We as Giant Bomb could go after several
Oh
that
yeah.
people have sent in. But it's like not worth it
Yeah.
because
There's no
it's not
confusion.
affecting us. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No one really thinks that that's associated with us. What they think is, oh, look, someone ripped off that logo. Okay. And it's like, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Then who cares? All right. Let's take a quick break. When we come back, Xbox revenue came in. How many people have played Indiana Jones? And Marvel Snap got a new publisher. We'll talk about all of that right after this. All right. Yep. Welcome back to GameBomb.ru, everybody. Let's get right into it. Xbox revenue fell 7% in Q2 as hardware sales dropped to 29%. This is from Tom Ivan at VGC. Microsoft has reported a 7% revenue decline for its gaming division during its second fiscal quarter. The division generated $6.6 billion in revenue during the 3 months ended December 31st, 2024, which was down $530 million year over year. The decline was attributed to a 29% drop in Xbox hardware revenue, driven by a lower volume of consoles sold during the quarter. Xbox content and services revenue increased 2% year over year, fueled by growth of Game Pass. Microsoft completed its acquisition of Activision Blizzard in October 2023, in the process taking ownership of franchises including Call of Duty, World of Warcraft, Diablo, and Overwatch. That was followed by a significant rise in sales for its gaming division, blah, blah, blah. And so, yeah, mostly this is just in line with what we've been hearing from like Matt Piscatella and from other regional sales figures, that gaming content is, flat or close to flat or just up slightly, maybe up a little bit more than they were expecting, but not enough to keep up with the rising cost of development. And then meanwhile, hardware has just cratered, especially for Xbox. Although, I think PlayStation 5 sales are also down double digits percentage wise. Down 29% though, that's really a hefty number, and it really does kind of continue to shed a light on how Xbox is viewing hardware going forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, every news story talking about the future of Xbox when it comes to software has primarily been focused on software. That last developer direct from, gosh, was that last week, Grub? Or 2 weeks ago now?
Yeah, I think it was last week. Yeah.
No focus, no mention of any new hardware. They didn't even tease like an upcoming reskinned Xbox or anything. So I think it has been writing on the wall that Xbox as a whole is focusing less and less on hardware and pushing more for that software. Even during the Game Awards, some of those Xbox ads were, that's an Xbox, that's an Xbox, that's an Xbox. Really not devaluing, but like de-emphasizing the need for hardware. So it's not surprising. It is wild though to see it crater that much by 29%. And Grub, do you think we're just going to start seeing cheaper Xboxes or some type of like half-step console
Well,
in the near future?
No, I don't think we get a half-step console. If anything, I think we get the new generation of Xbox in 2026, the end of next year. I think they just kick off the start of that thing sooner rather than later, so they could sort of refresh the feeling about it. Now, like, how do they present that? How do they get people to care? I don't know how much they care. I think they want to keep making Xbox hardware, but I don't think they are interested in winning people who aren't already interested. I think it'll be an option, and it'll be one option among many.
If the PS5 Pro or the base PS5 and the PS5 Pro are not selling like hotcakes, it just does not seem like a wise step to just start the new generation of consoles this early, especially when we're finally seeing people end support for PS4 games. So we can finally start this new generation that we've been in for the past 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it's it's an awkward transition, or just an awkward proposition, because as you point out, people just don't feel great about the investment they made in this generation. But I think that speaks to a lot of people are moving on from a console first mentality. Not everybody. I know people will immediately come back like, no, you say that all the time, but that's not how I feel. And I get that. And that's why they are going to continue making Xboxes. They will. And hopefully they continue making consoles in a way where it's like, let's think about positioning. Let's not be like rely on the games to sell these things. And so if we can't rely on the games to sell these things because they're not exclusive, how do we get people to want to buy an Xbox? And I hope there's a team dedicated there to solving that and thinking about like, okay, let's make it a joy to use. Let's make it very easy to do everything. Let's make it super fast. Let's make it so it's like, once you plug this into your TV, maybe you do want to use it for Netflix and everything. Because while that stuff's baked into your TV, actually it's even easier and faster and more responsive here to the point where it's actually hard to ignore. If they can like deliver on a lot of these just basic fundamental usability aspects of a console, these things could still justify themselves going forward. It's just not going to be the story where, hey, this is the only place to play Halo, and that's why you have to have this box.
Grubb, do you see a potential future for Xbox, perhaps even PlayStation, to just straight up rip off Nintendo's MO, where maybe it is not the full console, but maybe it is like the lesser of the two consoles that isn't as powerful, doesn't have a disk drive, but is a dockable / portable system?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they are, as Phil Spencer's talked about this recently, again, he's done a lot of interviews. I think he said in one place where they want to focus on making the next thing very innovative. What does that mean exactly? I think they're going to have to get creative with the form factor. And if that means creating something that is has some conveniences while cutting some other stuff, that I'm sure that's something that they are considering. But I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if you want to like just have one box that is super capable, and once people have it, they don't have any questions. It's just going to do all the things, or if you want to have an option or a variety of options where it's like this thing can do this, but it doesn't do that as well. I don't know what the right answer there is. I just know I know at this point that I am not super interested in rushing out to get new consoles in general. Honestly,
No.
like I didn't get the PS5 Pro, and that's a little bit strange for me. And but the reality is I don't use my PS5 or my Xbox very much at all. I just find those to be rather cumbersome these days. And I just enjoy using the PC more. And then if I'm not using the PC, I'm using a handheld, whether that's the Switch, the Steam Deck, the Roger, whatever.
Phil, you may be listening. Hear me out here, Phil.
Definitely. Hi, Phil.
Big Philly time. Speaking about Big Philly time, Nintendo already failed me with this, Phil. Here is your opportunity to have your own Game and Watch. Phil, I don't need to say anymore. I don't want people to steal your thunder, but perhaps this new Xbox has a watch with it.
Maybe that watch has electric diodes on the back that can shock you.
Yeah. And you got to do jumping jacks to undo it.
Oh, man. Dan says he'll never wear that thing again, but he also won't send it to me. I want to try this thing. But he says he wants to keep it as a threat, and I'm like, well, you said you're never going to use it again, so now I got to get back there. Let me expense my own. I don't know.
That being said, when I saw Lucy last week, Grubb, as she was going through her belongings at the office, she did find an unopened game scent, and then I was terrified.
Oh no! All of those should be destroyed, please. All right, let's actually there was a little bit more here from Satya Nadella, and Nadella ran through the Xbox division's quarterly highlights. We're focused on improving the profitability of the business in order to position it for long-term growth driven by higher margin content and platform services, and we are delivering on this plan. Nadella claimed that Black Ops 6 enjoyed a record-breaking launch quarter as it topped software sales on both Xbox and PlayStation. He also said Indiana Jones and the Great Circle did well. We'll get to that story next here. The profitability over everything else kind of seems to be like maybe that should be their focus. They've spent a lot of money. They've invested a lot in Xbox and in games, and trying to like boost up console sales above all else is probably just not wise in this moment. And instead being like, well, what do we have, and how can we make the most money with what we have? That seems to be what they're going for, and that would probably mean less and less of a focus on hardware. So it's just like this is the way it's going to be, and it's going to kind of keep heading in this direction. And for people hoping that one day, a company like Microsoft returns to the Xbox 360 days, doesn't seem to be in the cards. And really, it just feels like the entire market has moved past that.
Yeah. Nikki has a good point. I feel like they could make more money if they made more cheaper games. I wholeheartedly agree, but not Nintendo. Microsoft is not anywhere near that direction, which is unfortunate. I would love, Grubb. I know that everyone was very skeptical when Hitman released, and they said they would be doing episodic stuff. I don't think I would mind that with a new Halo.
Yeah, I wonder if there's just like ways to build these games where it's just so much more like affordable, where and maybe Halo's just one of these franchises where it's like, no, that's got to be competing at the high end in every way, and that's not just like the quality of the content, but the quantity of the content. That was a big thing that held back Infinite. So I just wonder if they'd be able to make that work, but clearly they could probably apply Nintendo's way of thinking to new things, but the problem is like, hey, Microsoft goes and tries to make their own Mario Party, and it's going to sell 1 million copies, right? It's not going to sell the 25 million copies that they've sold across like the last 2 Mario Parties. And really, between the 3 Mario Parties on Switch, they're at something insane, like almost 35, 40 million copies or something like that. So, and compare the amount of those 3 Mario Parties, they probably spent a fraction of the money making those as Microsoft's spent on any of its big games across the board. And when Microsoft does have a smaller games, they're like, hey, it's $40, and they're little niche things to the side. Yeah. And I love that, to the point where it's like, I'm in that niche usually. But they are not positioning them in the way Nintendo does. It's like, no, you're going to still got to pay up $60 and we're going to sell a lot of these. It's just a very different mindset.
Listen, we joke around about this a lot. Our audience jokes around about this a lot. I honest to God think a new 1 versus 100 would do very well, Grubb.
I would welcome it for sure. Okay, let's see here. Let's keep going. Over 4 million people have played Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. Game did surprisingly well. That's, across Game Pass and the copies sold. This is from Jonas Mackey at Game Reactor. During the evening U.S. time, Microsoft published its latest quarterly report, and I think Nadella confirmed this, that it sold 4 million copies, but it might have been in the documentation as well. I think that's great for the Fantastic Circle, as we say around here. I don't know if it's like, the best sales results or, engagement results. You can look to something like a big exclusive on PlayStation or a big exclusive on Switch that is of this caliber, and those can race to like 8 million copies sold pretty quickly. So, but it's exclusive right now to Xbox and Steam, and between those 2 platforms, it seems like it did pretty well, and it's still coming to PlayStation. So there's a chance for it to still pop off quite a bit more. But also this just feels like maybe a slow and steady result for this game, a slow and steady start, where we're going to look back and sometime be like, oh yeah, that game just kept doing well because it had good word of mouth and sold for a very long time. Do you think that's a possibility here?
100%. I also think that the core PlayStation audience, this type of game is right up their alley, where they are looking for a single player AAA experience, and this is going to have a whole new injection of life as soon as it comes out on PS5.
Yep, and I think
I'm not worried about it at all.
And they'll start up the marketing campaign again at that time as well, right?
Yeah. This game will have a Game of the Year edition come fall of this year.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, God, if they rush that thing out and have it to go alongside the PlayStation 5 release, so it's on Xbox and Steam as well at that same time, could easily get a bump.
Yeah.
So we'll see. More people should be playing it. There are like 30 million subscribers on Game Pass. If you have Game Pass, go play this game. It's pretty good.
I've yet to check it out, Grubb.
It's a good time. All right, let's move along here. Marvel Snap says it has a new publisher to ensure TikTok shutdown never happens again. This comes from our boy Chris Scullion over at VGC. The developer of Marvel Snap says it's enlisted the help of a new publisher to make sure its TikTok-related shutdown doesn't repeat. Earlier this month, in the days leading up to Donald Trump's inauguration as U.S. president, the Supreme Court decided to uphold a decision to ban TikTok. 9-0 decision. It was weird. As a result, TikTok was taken offline in the US for a weekend, along with other apps owned by its developer ByteDance, including Marvel Snap, which was published by ByteDance's game publishing label Newverse. After both TikTok and Marvel Snap were reinstated, Second Dinner, the developer, explained the outage and said that it was surprised and that it didn't know that that was planned, and it vowed to find a new partner. In a statement posted on Twitter, today, the studio says this work is now underway, with publisher Skystone Games helping the process. A Marvel Snap game that makes a lot of money, probably was pretty easy to find a new publisher, and probably one that would give it pretty good terms. So this is good news. The game should be protected from this stuff in the future. Or maybe new bans will come along and it'll get shut down anyhow. Who knows?
Yeah, Grubb. Especially if the developers didn't know that this was going to happen. We're all totally going to be fine.
Yep, that's it's just a shocking thing, like to be in that situation where you're like, oh yeah, well, I mean, sure, that's happened in ByteDance, but this is a TikTok ban because of whatever's happening there. It's about the content from that app, so we shouldn't be fine. And just to find out when the game just doesn't work anymore, you honestly, I think they pointed this out on the Nextlander podcast. I think that's where it was. That probably was a breach of contract to not inform the people running the game what was going to happen with their game as a result of something happening between you and the U.S. government. That probably did breach the contract and free them up to find another partner. So I'm glad that they took advantage of that to take this opportunity to extract themselves from that situation.
Yeah. Also, for I haven't played Marvel Snap in a very long time. That's something I have been able to put down. I still know people that are caught in the loop. Being down for however many days would incredibly mess with their revenue, Grubb.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And it's the kind of thing where it's like someone's not able to play for a couple of days and they just like maybe go find a new game. And it's like, oh, man, that person that was in our ecosystem has left. And it's like, well, that stinks for you, but clearly that's going to hurt the studio. Okay. Last story here. Capcom Spotlight plus Monster Hunter Wilds showcase set for September 4th. This is from Sal Romano at Gamatsu. Capcom will host a Capcom Spotlight broadcast followed directly by a Monster Hunter Wilds showcase on February 4th at 2 p.m. Pacific time, 5 p.m. Eastern. This will show up on YouTube in English and Japanese. The 35-minute broadcast will feature back-to-back info about all that's coming from Capcom, including Monster Hunter Wilds, Onimusha Way of the Sword, Capcom Fighting Collection 2, and Marvel vs. Capcom Fighting Collection Arcade Classics, followed by further information on Monster Hunter Wilds with producer Ryosu Sugimoto, including the latest trailer and details about the second open beta test. So, yeah, Capcom, often has done its own thing here. I'm hoping maybe we get some surprises. Do you think there's a chance we get a little tidbit about Resident Evil at this showcase, or is it too early still?
I think it still might be too. Well, I don't know.
I'm with you, Ray. I go back and forth.
Yeah, I go back and forth, Grubb, because I feel like Monster Hunter Wilds is going to be their big showpiece for this quarter.
Yes.
And this is what they want to focus on. And I can't imagine they would want to perhaps steal Monster Hunter's thunder with a one more thing or even like a teaser for the new Resident Evil.
Maybe it's the teaser for a Resident Evil showcase later this year. Maybe they say, hey, look out for that coming later this year.
Yeah, but with where Capcom is currently at, I feel like they don't need to drop any teases, Grubb, because they're such in a strong position as is that they can ride the wave from Monster Hunter Wilds perhaps to the spring or summer, and then that's when they can drop we're going to talk about Resident Evil now.
Yep, you're right. People show up no matter when they do it, they can command that audience. So you're definitely right. I think, Resident Evil 9 probably does get announced this year. I think there's a small chance it gets announced this in the first half of this year and comes out holiday this year, but that's very aggressive. I recognize that. But I think we're on a timeline where that is within the spectrum of possibility, and then maybe more likely very early next year actually is when it comes out. A March release, February release for Resident Evil has worked very well before. Maybe they want to replicate that again. So either way, though, means we're going to be hearing about that game soon. Probably not here. And then, Monster Hunter Wilds. We'll get a good look at that before that game's coming out.
Oh, I'm so ready, Grubb. I am so ready.
I want to colonize the hell out of this game.
That's right. we're gonna gentrify, but the good kind.
The kind where we win.
uh, I know that Assassin's Creed Shadows, that core audience is a very different audience than that core Monster Hunter audience.
Yep.
But I feel like with how popular Worlds was, Wilds is just going to make it so much easier for everyone to jump in and start hunting with folks that man, Grub, that Monster Hunter hype is going to last a very long time. So I'm worried for every game releasing in its wake.
It is clearly like those two games like represent both sides of the argument that we've been kind of like talking about the last few weeks on Giant Bomb, where it's like Assassin's Creed Shadows, a franchise that has been honed down to a very fine refinement over the last 2 decades, versus Monster Hunter, which is, known for its complexity and its depth and letting people get lost, to the point where every single one of the game releases of Monster Hunter has multiple dedicated content creators that just explain to you what every weapon does and every class and how to approach every enemy, because all of it is so bespoke and specific, and people love that shit these days. They have always loved it. Again, that is, I think, the core of what Pokemon's success has been, is they do that for kids and make kids feel empowered, that they have this understanding of a world that the rest of the world doesn't get, their parents don't understand. And so it's like Monster Hunter is going to have this wave that builds and builds as people make it more and more part of their personality. And Assassin's Creed just doesn't have that. Like the way it replicates that is like, get people to care about the lore. And boy, people don't give a shit about the lore anymore because it's obvious Ubisoft didn't care about it. So yeah, I mean, I think Assassin's Creed Shadows could be a very good game, but if I was like, and if there was a betting market about which one of these things is going to build a bigger audience over the following weeks after it comes out, it's an easy bet on Monster Hunter Wilds.
Yeah. Also, folks that checked out and maybe Monster Hunter World was their first entry into the series, those potentially could have been very younger gamers, Grubb, that are now older, and they may have just stayed as like a kind of like 1 to 2, maybe 3 games a year type of dealio for them.
Right.
And they have been hankering and hungry for more of that world, and Wilds is going to deliver that tenfold for them.
Yep, absolutely. And again, I think Shadows is probably going to do just fine. It's probably going to be just fine. But I the way the wind is blowing, Wilds is it. It's him.
Yeah. I am so upset I didn't get it in fantasy.
Yeah, for real. All right, let's see here. I am going to get us to the poll question, but first let me get us to the poll question there so I can bring it up for everybody. There it is. Frame it up proper. There we go. All right. Have you played a local multiplayer game with another person on the PS5 or Xbox Series X/S? And 49% of people have said yes, they have. 51% said no. Basically 50-50, right down the middle. I have done this with my kids, definitely. Honestly, might have done it with some human beings here or there over the last 5-6 years. Might be forgetting, but I've done it relatively frequently with the kids. Like when I brought this up because they're adding local split screen back into Baldur's Gate 3 on Xbox Series S. And I'm like, well, is this a very common feature? I bet, if it's like 1 in even 15 or 1 in 10, I guess that's quite a few people who end up doing that, actually. So having this feature as an option, fantastic, really cool. Yeah. And turns out a lot of people do enjoy playing games this way still.
I can't say that I've done it in this current console generation, but generations previous, 100%. So to see this alive and well for folks that want that option, by all means.
Yeah, God, for the N64, for me, the reason I have such a fondness for it, a big part of that was the local multiplayer system, and I would have friends over constantly to my parents' house. We were just playing games nonstop through high school, through junior high and high school, and it's like, God, that was a great way to experience that console. And you could just tell the people that weren't playing it that way do not have any fondness for that system at all. And I'm like, I get it. I understand. New poll question. We'll get to it here in a second. Before we do that, Jan, anything to say?
I played so much Halo 3 split screen.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Grub. So much Halo 3.
Yeah.
And Gears and RE5.
Yeah, there were like certain games where it's like, oh yeah, this is a really fun thing to do, where I would pop back in and do that like after that. But it was never quite the same after N64, where it was like, this is clearly just what you do. Even the GameCube like had a lot of that, but and really part of that is just N64 didn't have a lot of other options because its library was relatively limited. Okay, yeah, like I said, new poll question in a second. First, let's figure out what we're doing on Giant Bomb. Jan, it's Thursday. That means voicemail dump truck, right?
That means voicemail dump truck Grubb on top of some other internal jazz we got to go take care of. But tomorrow we will be having Game S mornings. Our episode of BCR, we will finally be crowning the winner of Best Music of 2024, Best Video Game Music. Hey, maybe we'll also crown Best Music of 2024 as well. But also we will be doing Orcs Must Friday, perhaps.
Yeah, that's a good one.
That's a good one. And yeah, Grubb, the week has already flown by.
Yes, it's really just absolutely zapped away. Just like the entire month has. Again, I recognize that it can feel very long when you think about all the things that happened, but it is happening at such a rapid pace that it's actually difficult to keep track of it. I saw something like a headline last night. I'm like, wait, did this really happen? And I'm like, oh wait, I don't know if I can believe my eyes anymore. And I was like, should I go search for this? And I'm like, I don't know if I trust the search results anymore. Oh my God, what is true? And that gave me a little bit of an existential like death spin last night that I didn't feel super great about, Jan. So it's rough out there, bud.
Yeah, it's rough out there. But for folks that it's especially rough out there, we will continue to try to make this a safe and welcoming corner of the internet for
we'll do our part
at home.
Yep.
Yeah.
As
Unless you need to be punched in the face for reasons.
Yep.
We love you, and y'all are home here.
That's right. Real quick, yes, the Video Game History Foundation did launch their digital library today. I've used this thing in the past.
Ooh.
I used a beta version of it, and it is very well done. But the thing they launched today is like their huge backup where they scanned all of these video game magazines, because they would have people send them video game magazines, and they would just put page by page into a really high quality scanner. And they have, for example, Electronic Gaming Monthly, fall 1986 through fall 2015. Like every issue, Game Pro, Game Fan, Game Informer, Multimedia World, Next Gen Magazine, the official Sega Dreamcast magazine. There are 33 magazines in this library, and then publications, and then huge vasts of the libraries of those. I love this stuff. They did a very good job. The site has been going up and down a little bit since they've launched, because there's a lot of interest. But this is going to do awesome things for research for video game history, because like every time I go back and read an old magazine, I mean, I subscribe to their thing where I donate like $25 a month. And each month they send me an old video game magazine. And every time I go through one of these things, I'm learning something, or I'm discovering a game. And a lot of times it's bad games that people have completely forgot about. I'm like, putting that in the Blight Club like memory bank. I'm going to write this down because no one's heard of this thing, and it's important that we go back and look at this. So yeah, a lot of important history here. So check out Video Game History Foundation, and there's a big donate button on their site. Hit there, help them out. They're doing good work there.
Grubb, some breaking news in the chat.
Please.
Summer Game Fest has announced its 2025 event dates and plans. The showcase will happen Friday, June 6th. And then play days will run from June 7th to June 9th.
We'll see y'all for GB at night, everybody. Look out for it. Yeah, we'll be there. We'll have a good time. We'll have some coverage from Summer Games Fest. Okay, cool. That's great. That's good to know, because my wife was just asking me about dates, because she's got a bunch of travel happening in June. So I'll be able to figure that out now and be able to make sure I'm going to be there. Yes,
bring the gimmicks to SGF.
Yeah, the gimmicks can come. I'll get mother-in-law to come help out, and then Steph can go do her work while the gimmicks run around and bother Jeff Keighley. Oh, that's actually a really good idea.
That's adorable.
That's
oh my God.
Good stuff. New poll question. Did I say this? Have you played Indiana Jones and the Great Circle? Yes and no. That's your poll question for today. You can go to youtube.com/@giantbomb, the community tab, vote there. Get the results on tomorrow's show on Game S Mornings here on Giant Bomb. Speaking of Giant Bomb, we will see you later for Voicemail Dump Truck. Might pop off something before then, but like Jan said, we have some other stuff we got to take care of, so we'll do our best. In the meantime, Jan, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and talking about video games, man. I really appreciate it.
It's the only way to start a Thursday. Happy Lunar New Year to those that celebrate.
Yep. Happy LNY, everybody. Take care of yourself. Happy Year of the Snake. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. You are the best audience in gaming. Until next time, have a good one. Take care of yourself. And goodbye. Fade to black.
Shouts out to the moon.
Ride the snake.